Okay, it's just gone 7 o'clock, so good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet. My name is Councillor Shantanu Rajawat. I'm the Leader of the Council and Chair of Cabinet. Those in the audience, very welcome to you, and those watching at home as well, are welcome to you as well. Hopefully you find this meeting useful and get something out of this. Got quite a few things to get through, so I'll ask Cabinet members to introduce themselves when they speak. For the first time. We have got officers present in the room should they need to support as well, and they'll be introduced as and when they're called, if they're called as well. So we'll go on to agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence. Now, I've had apologies from Councillor Lambert and Councillor Raza. I don't think there are any other, everyone else is here. Yep. Good. Any declarations of interest from Cabinet members on any of the items? I can't see anyone indicating. And any communications to members on any of the items? No one indicating. Good. So then we'll move on to agenda item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of September. I'll go through those page by page, starting at page 7. So page 7, page 8, page 9, and page 10. Any matters arising? No. Is Cabinet happy for me to sign off the minutes as an accurate record? Agreed. Thank you very much, colleagues. So then move on swiftly to agenda item 3, Adult Social Care Transport Policy for Day Service Provision. That's a report by Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Chowdhury, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Samir Chowdhury, Lead Member for Adult and Health Integration. This is about the adult social care transport policy for the day service provision, and this is the proposed implementation of a policy only for day-centered transport and not a policy covering all transport related to adult and social care. It's therefore only relates to a small number of people, 27, who attends the Sandbank Day Centre, which is a very stable service user. The proposed policy is in line with the principles of assessment, meeting needs and allocation of resources within the requirements of the CARE Act 2014 and associated with the statutory guidance. The details of the recommendations, it's on page 11, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, what I would like the Cabinet to consider, and I propose the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. I'll formally second the report and reserve my right to speak. We are then open to questions or comments. Please do indicate. Any questions? Councillor Dunn.
Thank you very much, Councillor Catherine Dunn, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Climate, Environment and Transport Strategy. Really welcome this report. I think it's important that we have a policy in place. I know from previous discussions with Councillor Chowdhury that we're not expecting this to affect a very large number of people at the moment, but nevertheless, it is very important that we have this in place so that our decisions around this can be guided by a policy and making sure that we're treating everyone fairly. So for those reasons, I'm very happy to support this report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunn. Any other questions or comments? I can see no one else indicating. So we'll move to the vote. The recommendations on page 11, 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3. Can I see all those in favour? Anyone against? No, that's all carried. Thank you very much, colleagues. We then move on to agenda item 4, temporary agency staff resourcing, time limited contract extension to upgrade service model. What a mouthful. So this contract looks to Cabinet to agree a contract extension with our provider Adecco, also moving to allow for a movement to a new framework, which has been let through a national tender, a London-wide tender through London councils for a period of up to 4 years with a break clause after 2 years. More generally, on temporary agency staff, we acknowledge that sometimes we need them, at the moment in particular in social care, but we're very clear as an administration there must be a reason to have them and a defined start date and end date. And if a contract is required to be extended, the reasons for that. We're not against temporary contracts. And we acknowledge that sometimes they are necessary, and we look to build the capacity within Hounslow as well, which I think is quite important, and the social value that's associated with that, which is dealt with within this report. So I will pause there and formally move it. Councillor Dunn, will you second?
Yep, very happy to second and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. It is open to questions and debate. Any questions or comments from anyone? Stunned silence. Councillor Bruce.
I mean, there's not much really to say on this, and I think that's why there's not many people saying this. I think it just I would echo your words and say I think this is an important step forward in making sure that we continue in the right way. I mean, I'm using a lot of platitudes and words like to that effect, but it is something that keeps this council running and to an effective way for our residents. I can't really say better than that.
And just by way of introduction, that was Councillor Tom Bruce, lead member for Regeneration and Development. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so the recommendations on page 47, page 47, 1.1. Can I see all those in favour, please? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, colleagues. Next item, I promise you, normally they aren't this heavily with me speaking. There will be cabinets where others speak as well. This is the year 2 update of the Hounslow.digital, our digital strategy. This brings the digital strategy up to date in line with the corporate plan and our new pledges in the corporate plan. But what I'm particularly proud of is our commitment, the digital inclusion commitment, which is detailed within the reports. Now, this obviously acknowledges that there's a lot that we can do as a council around digital inclusion and helping with deprivation. We also appreciate that there are some who will struggle more with going digital, as it were, and we acknowledge that this is not about digital for everyone and forced down their throat. It's about enabling upskilling and support for those that are slightly less confident on digital and slightly more hesitant, whilst giving space for those that just won't engage with it to access council services in a different way. But there is a lot of opportunity within the report that you'll see, and the commitment kind of lays out our support that we offer there. So with that, I move the report formally. Councillor Dunn, will you second?
Yes, second the report, reserve my right to speak.
Excellent. And we are open to debate. Councillor Bruce.
Yes, Councillor Tom Bruce, lead member for planning, regeneration and development. I got it wrong. I think this is an incredibly important thing that we're doing, and I, know that we're constantly moving on this and evolving on our strategy to make it even better. It's one of those things that I'm sure I'm not alone that comes up time and again in our interaction with residents, where many want that face-to-face contact. They want to be able to pick up the phone and they want to be able to talk to someone, and they get frustrated at our push on digital first. I do understand that, and we all do understand that. But I would say that the future is digital. We need to encourage, where possible, and you said this yourself, Leader, where possible, people are moving on, can use online portals and websites. They should be doing that, and we want to encourage the ease of access. I think it's that sort of Amazon one-click type thing. I mean, I'm not particularly picking up any one business here, but you want that, ease of use, being able to find the thing you want as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And that's the thing that we're talking about here, while providing that space for those who need to improve their digital skills or do want to pick up the phone. They are able to do that. We know there are a number of people in this borough who struggle digitally. We knew that from the pandemic. We knew that from our survey, the last survey we conducted a few years ago, that there was that lack of digital engagement, particularly within the pandemic. Young people not being digitally unaware or unable, but just not having the access to equipment. So it's one thing important to highlight the successes we did have, a number of the successes we did have during the pandemic, but being able to get out lots of laptops to young people in order to mean that they were able to continue their studies. And it's things that we've been able to carry on, and that's detailed here, not just with young people, but people who don't have the funds in order to provide their own. So we do understand the difficulty some people have. It is something that is incredibly important, and we want to make it as easy for people to use as possible. And that digital first environment is something we need to embrace, and we want to support people being able to do that. So thank you, Leader, for this.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce, Councillor Shaheen, and then Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Salman Shaheen, Cabinet Member for Parking, Parks and Leisure. I think this is a very good report, very important paper, and this is coming from someone who still thinks that MySpace is the future. Technology is moving very rapidly, and obviously, as a service provider, as an organisation that is frequently engaging with the residents, we have a lot of asks that residents, where they can move with us and utilise the most recent technology, because it is the most efficient way to access services. But we also have to understand that some residents will feel excluded from that, whether that's due to access to the physical devices needed, or whether that's due to skills to use it or knowledge to use it. And I think that it's very important that we always listen, always learn. I think that's always going to be our ambition, is it not? Because it is one of the things that upsets residents the most when they can't move into the technology that we're using. So very, very important to have this paper, and always to be listening to residents with their concerns over digital inclusion.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen. Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you, Leader. I think this was really important one. Listening to residents, yes, with the digital and technology, I like what Councillor Shaheen has said. It's really important that we look into it. But from Healthier Hounslow point of view, that I've seen in here that we will be, our initiative will be using such as a better point to enable healthier lifestyle, adopt smart place technology to encourage the independent living. And I think it's really, really important to tell our resident, which is in here, and explain them how we can work together, and explain about the technology. On the other end, the commitment to reduce digital exclusion, which is too good to see here as well, and work with partners to join up the data. That's the extremely important thing as well, so that we can improve how we support the most vulnerable resident in our borough. Thank you so much for bringing this in, Leader.
Thank you. And you raise a valid point there, Councillor Chowdhury, around the partnership working and broadband connectivity as well. We can't do this on our own, so we're working closely with the partners that we have. Councillor Thompson, welcome.
Thank you. Peter Thompson, leader of the Conservative group. Just to echo, everyone's obviously prioritising this as a key and important area, and I think residents will be reassured to hear that, if your commitment, Leader, that no one will be left behind as we move into this digital world. However, you haven't invited me along to these things just to say nice things about everything, and there are within the report a couple of items just to be interested to know. Obviously, the housing management and the planning projects aren't going to plan. And just wondered whether you'd perhaps be able to share very briefly why that was the case and what we're going to do about it, because obviously they are, especially the planning one, it's one of the key, isn't it, portals where residents do want to know what's going on. So I'm very interested to know what's happening on that one. Thank you.
If it's all right, Councillor Thompson, I'll address that in the summing up. Anyone else want to say anything on this? No, okay. So just in summing up, yes, you're absolutely right, Councillor Thompson. The upgrade to the planning system and some of the housing works are running a little bit behind. I'm monitoring this very closely with Mark Lumley, who's our head of IT, digital, sorry, beg your pardon, around this. And as I understand it, they are in testing, and it's a fine balance. It's about making sure that it works in the long term and it serves its purpose rather than rushing through the implementation of it. So my assurance to you is that it's top of my agenda. I appreciate that it's what residents interact most with, and our staff in housing services as well. So it's an absolute priority to get them live as quickly as possible in a sustainable way. So you have my commitment on that. Good. Okay. So the recommendations here are on page 53, 1.1, 1.2. I think that's it. Yeah, 1.1 and 1.2. Can I see all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That's carried. Thank you, colleagues. And final report of the evening is the budget monitoring for period 5. This is a regular report that comes to Cabinet detailing our financial position. Now, there are a number of recommendations, practical recommendations from G to O in there for Cabinet to agree. Obviously, we can't ignore the fact that there is an overspend being reported in this report. We know the national context, that's well reported in there. I think the success that we've always had in this council is around being prudent with our money and trying to understand where those cost pressures exist and trying to control them wherever possible, be that through managing the market or managing costs internally. It's no lie, and I think every council leader that I speak to of any colour will tell you it is becoming increasingly difficult. The cost of living crisis that's playing out for our residents is also playing out here in the council, and the pressures that we see in adult services and children's services in terms of the market is really playing out. But nonetheless, we need to stick to our track record of understanding those costs and trying to push them down wherever possible across the organisation. And I know, and I can say this with confidence, Cabinet colleagues alongside their executive directors work very hard day in, day out, almost line by line to understand those pressures while still keeping an eye on delivering that ambitious manifesto. It is so important in this context as the next few weeks unfold with the national picture that we continue to be focused on protecting our residents and delivering on those ambitions, because that is what our residents have demanded from us by returning us to the council. So there are a number of recommendations here, and I'll move the report formally. Councillor Dunn, do you want to?
Yes, I'll second the report, and I will speak to say, I mean, obviously we are entering a very difficult period. It's difficult for many of our residents and difficult for local government. I mean, we thought we were already in one, but it's like there's going to be so much more. So, you know, well done for keeping on top of this, and that goes to all Cabinet colleagues and officers here. And we've got there are some overspends that we need to look at here and make sure that we get back on track. Just to, not to be all doom and gloom, and to mention, some of the good things that are happening, because we are an ambitious council, and we have things that we've said we'll achieve, and that we will do our best to achieve despite the financial climate. So just looking at these recommendations here, we're bidding for funding for social housing decarbonisation. This is incredibly important when it comes to our climate emergency goals, and for reaching net zero by 2030. One of the biggest emitters of carbon under the council's direct control comes from our social housing stock, our council housing. So it's incredibly important that we get on through our own funding and what funding we can bid for to make the changes that are required to make our buildings more energy efficient. And it's not, but it's, I say our buildings, but it's people's homes. So it's about making people's homes more energy efficient. And then that will have a positive effect for those residents who live in those homes as well, because it will mean that they don't have to pay so much on their energy bills, which is obviously a huge concern for everyone at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely right, Councillor Dunn. Thank you for that. Any other questions, comments? I'm looking around. Councillor Sampson, don't forget to introduce yourself.
Councillor Sampson, lead member for housing, homelessness. Yes, no, it was just a comment coming on that, just to reassure you that we are on track to deliver our decarbonisation within housing by 2026. Moving on to 2030 is a little bit more challenging, but we will get there.
Absolutely right. Anyone else? Anyone else? Councillor Thompson.
Just a very quick one. Obviously, the dedicated schools grant is a concern. And I fully understand the pressures and why we're in that sort of state. Sometimes I think when we're in these situations, creative thinking is called for. And I just wonder whether the department or yourself is perhaps just approaching notions of perhaps working with surrounding authorities and joint planning in this sort of area, just to make sure that any economies of scale perhaps could be factored in by that, or whether you think that's not a feasible way forward.
Councillor Bath, do you want to come in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, I can come in. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it obviously is a challenge, and we are looking at a number of options. I think if you look at the actual report, in terms of just the spend in children and adults, it's obviously quite high. Children's services, adult services, it's a high spend area, isn't it? It kind of goes without saying, really. So, for example, our spend on specialist services, overspend is 4.2 million. I was just talking to Stephen yesterday or the day before, I can't remember actually. We seem to be talking every day at the moment about the number of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children that we have had, and the impact that has actually had on our local authority in terms of placements, and that costs quite a lot. So these are pressures that we've had, but are exacerbated by some of the challenges that we've had, in children's social care, because in terms of the cost, it's often related to finding placements, suitable placements for young people who might be unaccompanied, and that usually involves the cost of a supported placement rather than a foster care. So all of those costs add up, and then obviously SEN transport is another overspend as well. We have commissioned a review of SEN transport with 28 recommendations, I think. So I'll be happy to speak about that at some stage in the future, if that's okay. But yeah, there are a lot of challenges. That goes without saying, really.
Thank you, Councillor Bath. Councillor Thompson, thank you very much. Anyone else before we... Okay, the recommendations are A to O, page 90 and 91. Can I see all those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Our item number 7, I've not had any referrals from any other council committees or any urgent business, which is item 8. The date of the next meeting is Tuesday, the 15th of November. Can I thank those that have attended in person and online, and colleagues around the table as well, and bid you all a good night. Thank you.